Well, hello everyone. I'm Michael Lawrence. Welcome to this Asia House digital event. Very good to have you all here today. It's my great pleasure to welcome His Excellency Liu Xiaoming, China's ambassador to the UK. Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for joining us. The ambassador will be in conversation with Lord Stephen Green, the chairman of Asia House. Now, we last heard the ambassador and Stephen Green in conversation at Asia House in June of last year. The trade tensions between the US and China-UK relations were top of the agenda at that time. Well, today's conversation takes place as the world struggles with the COVID-19 crisis. China is coming back online, apparently now through the worst of the crisis. There have been no reported deaths from the virus for the 8th day in a row, and only 10 reported new cases. Ambassador Liu and Lord Green will discuss the global response to the pandemic, and we'll consider the shape of the world as it emerges from the crisis. Now, in a moment, I'll hand over to Lord Green to formally welcome the ambassador to this session. Once they've completed their conversation, they're very pleased to take questions from you. Now, if you wish to ask a question at the appropriate time, please click on the hand wave icon at the bottom of your screen. I will bring you into the conversation when we open it up to the audience. Just to be clear, everyone, today's session is on the record. We are recording the event and it will be widely available. So with that, I would like to hand over to Lord Stephen Green to formally welcome the ambassador.
Michael, thank you. And Ambassador Liu, it's a great pleasure on behalf of Asia House to reiterate Michael's welcome. You're a regular visitor to Asia House. We've had many good conversations there before. Normally, I'm able to say to you, it's only a short walk from the embassy to Asia House. On this occasion, because of these strange and testing times that we live in, this is, of course, a virtual meeting, which means that we don't even have to walk from the embassy to Asia House. I have to say that I look forward to the occasion when we're able to return to business as normal and physically welcome you at the house. But we have an opportunity to take stock of these extraordinary times and their implications both for economics and for trade and for the global balance of relationships. And what I'd like to do is to invite you, Ambassador, to share your thoughts. You and I will then have a short discussion on some of the key themes, and then we will, as Michael has said, invite questions from our audience. So, Ambassador Liu, if I may, over to you.
Thank you. Lord Green, Michael, my lords, your excellencies and members of diplomatic corps, members of Asia House, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you, Lord Green, for your kind invitation and warm introduction. You know, this is my 11th year as a Chinese ambassador to the UK. Just as Lord Green said, I visit Asia House many times. I'm no stranger to Asia House, but this is really the first time that I've joined you online. I do need to walk to you. As the world enters the third decade of 21st century, the outbreak of COVID-19 is posing unparalleled challenges to the mankind, striking an unprecedented blow to the world economy and having a profound impact on international landscape. In this battle, every country in the world is facing a severe test. How is China doing in this test? Today, I'd like to share with you my views by answering the following three questions. First, what does China's experience mean to the global response to COVID-19? Second, how will China continue to be an engine for world economic growth in the context of the pandemic? Third, why does China believe international solidarity and cooperation is the most effective weapon against the virus? Currently, COVID-19 continues ravaging the world, and the global response to this challenge is at a critical moment. China was the first country to report the virus, and also the first to have achieved preliminary but important success in containing the virus. I think China's efforts bear threefold significance to global response to this public health crisis. First, China has built a strong line of defense for global public health. In the early days of the outbreak, China acted responsively and quickly by adopting the most comprehensive, strict, and thorough measures of prevention and control in the interests of the Chinese people and the rest of the world. Across the nation, 1.4 billion people rallied behind the government and waged a people's war against the virus. After strenuous efforts and enormous sacrifice, China became one of the first countries in the world to gotten the epidemic under control and has built the first line of defense for the world. Second, China has accumulated valuable experience for the global response to the pandemic. In fighting its battle against the virus, China has always focused its efforts on the welfare of the people and relied fully on the support of the people. It has become the most salient Chinese experience in this battle. In a record short time, China established an all-dimensional and multi-layered network of prevention and control, involving everyone from the central government to the local communities. The measures that China has taken are based on science. The principles of earlier diagnosis, earlier report, earlier quarantine, and earlier treatment have been followed, and they turn out to be very effective and successful. COVID-19 patients were admitted into designated hospitals with the best experts and sufficient resources for timely and tailored treatment. And both traditional Chinese medicine and Western medicines have been used to treat the patients. China attaches great importance to balancing counter-epidemic measures and ensuring economic and social progress. We've kept in mind both domestic and global impact when taking actions. Leaders of many countries have spoken highly of China's efforts and recognize that China's experience offers useful lessons to the world. Third, China has provided assistance to other countries in the spirit of solidarity. China has engaged actively in international cooperation in an open, transparent, and responsible manner to deal with the crisis. China notified the world about the outbreak without delay, acted quickly to identify and share the genetic sequence of the virus. At the same time, China has been sharing its experience of prevention, control, and treatment with other countries without reservation, and set up an online knowledge center, which is open to all countries. China has donated $20 million to the WHO. Today, China announced a further donation of $30 million, which will be used on containing COVID-19 and bolstering the public health system in developing countries. China has sent 17 teams of medical experts to 15 countries. It has provided or is in the process of providing much needed medical supplies, including masks, protective gowns, testing kits, and ventilators to more than 150 countries and international organizations, including the UK. Despite the difficulties at home, China has been increasing its supply of pharmaceutical ingredients and medical and protective equipment and materials to the international market. The assistance from China has injected positive energy into the international response to COVID-19 and shore up international confidence in winning this battle against the virus. Now I'd like to move on to the second part of my speech and talk about China's economy in the context of the outbreak. A few days ago, the IMF downgraded this year's growth expectations by a big margin, warning the impact of COVID-19 on the world economy might surpass that of the Great Depression of the 1920s. The outbreak has also taken its toll on China's economy and the social undertaking. In the first quarter, China's GDP contracted by 6.8% year-on-year. In face of the unprecedented challenges and uncertainties, it is all the more important that we show up confidence and work hard to turn challenges into opportunities. I think we could draw confidence from the following three facts. First, China's economy will remain steady growth in the long term. This momentum has not changed and will not change. China has a solid economic foundation. As the world's second largest economy, China's GDP reached $14.4 trillion in 2019, 3.1 times compare that of 2008 during the international financial crisis, and 8.6 times compared with that of 2003, amid the SARS outbreak. China is the only country in the world that has all the industries under the United Nations classifications. With a population of 1.4 billion, including 900 million labor force and more than 400 million middle income earners, China enjoys broad prospects for economic growth. China's economy has enormous potential for further growth. The per capita GDP has just crossed the $10,000 line, which is only 1/4 that of the UK and 1/6 that of the US. The urbanization rate only stands at 60%. As I said earlier, China attaches great importance to balancing counter-epidemic measures and economic and social progress. As of today, 99% of the major industrial companies have resumed operation. March manufacturing PMI increased by 16.3 percentage points over February. According to the latest IMF World Economic Outlook, China's economy will rebound in 2021, growing at 9.2%. Second, China's economy will pursue the high-quality development. This goal has not changed and will not change. We'll continue to follow the new development concept, press on with the supply-side structural reform, improve market-based allocation of production factors, and pursue high-quality growth through further reforms and opening up wider to the world. Measures have been taken to keep employment, financial market, foreign trade, investment, FDI, and expectations stable. On this basis, we've taken further steps to protect basic livelihood, market entities, food and energy security, stable industrial supply chains, and normal operation of the grassroots communities. All these efforts are aimed at ensuring overall economic growth and social stability. We have also taken measures to expand domestic demand and increase effective investment. The battle against this pandemic has also created new opportunities for development, such as stay-at-home economy and the cloud office. China is seizing these opportunities, will leverage the internet, big data, artificial intelligence, and other new technologies to accelerate the development of emerging industries, such as digital economy, smart manufacturing, and medical and healthcare. Efforts are also being made to transform and upgrade traditional industries, expand investment in strategic and emerging industries, and develop green economy. These efforts will ensure that China's economy remains on the track of high quality growth. Third, China will continue to be the powerhouse and stabilizer for the world economy. Our commitment has not changed and will not change. China has been committed to opening its market wider to the world. Measures have been taken to increase market access, improve business environment, expand import, increase outbound investment, facilitate an impeded flow of goods around the world, and promote high-quality cooperation on the Belt and Road Initiative. The 127th China Import and Export Fair will take place online in June. This will be the first time that this longest-running trade event in China will be held online. In November, China will hold the third China International Import Expo. Both events, I believe, will increase huge opportunities for mutually beneficial trade and cooperation between countries of the world. China has also calling on international community to step up micro-policy coordination in order to stabilize the market, secure growth, protect well-being, and ensure the global supply chain in open, stable. To ensure the global supply chain is open, stable, and safe. On top of that, China is the factory of the world. Steady economic growth in China is a strong support for global recovery. Now I would like to move to the third part of my speech and talk about how the international community should work together to win the battle against the COVID-19. The question being asked or debated around the world today is this: has the pandemic united or divided the world? My answer to this question is this: the ongoing battle is a living proof that the countries of the world belong to one and the same community with a shared future. In the battle against the pandemic, cooperation is the most effective weapon if international community wants to claim final victory of the virus. First, we need global united action to win the battle. At the extraordinary G20 Leaders Summit last month, President Xi Jinping put forth 4 important proposals. First, we need to fight a global war. Second, we need to take international collective action. Third, we need to support international organizations in playing their active roles. Fourth, we need to enhance macroeconomic policy coordination. He also made a number of specific proposals regarding international intergovernmental cooperation, including joint R&D of drugs and vaccines, a G20 COVID-19 assistance initiative, and joint efforts to stabilize global industrial and supply chains. Second, we should enhance solidarity and shore up confidence. The virus does not respect borders or discriminate between races. In face of the crisis, blaming and scapegoating are futile. Arrogance and insolence will only poison the cooperation between countries. It is against the human conscience to deliberately put a virus label on a specific region, politicize public health issue, and stigmatize a specific country. Such a move will only drive a wedge between countries, undermine international cooperation, and harm the interest of all mankind. It is important that countries of the world reject ideological bias, put lives above everything else, and form maximum synergy to bring the pandemic under control. First, we should uphold multilateralism and support international organizations in playing an active role. China has been committed to multilateralism. We've been working to strengthen and improve the global governance system with the UN at its core. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, the WHO has taken an objective, scientific, and just position and play an important role in coordinating and promoting international cooperation. This has won extensive recognition from the international community. Going forward, China will continue, as always, to support the WHO, including supporting its leadership in current battle against COVID-19. China will also work actively to strengthen cooperation on public health with the countries along the Belt and Road routes, and to join hands with them to build a Silk Road of public health. Fourth, we should promote inclusive cooperation in order to build an open world economy. There may be difficulties and headwinds, but they are no reason for us to stop cooperating in the open spirit of seek development through cooperation. Advocates of decoupling or scientific and technological blockade will only find themselves in self-imposed isolation, restriction, and retrogression. China will remain committed to reform and opening up and enhance coordination of microeconomic policies with other countries. This includes taking all necessary measures to ensure the stability of global industrial and supply chains, promote trade and investment, liberalization and facilitation, and build an open world economy. Ladies and gentlemen, China and the UK are important partners in this battle against the virus. In a matter of 1 month, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Boris Johnson had 2 telephone conversations. This demonstrates the firm determination of our 2 countries to work together to meet the challenges of this public health crisis. At the moment, our 2 countries are sharing information and experience, conducting joint scientific research. We are both advocates of multilateralism. We are both supporters of the important role of WHO in a united global response. We are both proponents of international cooperation under the framework of the G20. We are both promoters of better global governance on public health. At this critical moment, it is important that China and the UK take up our responsibilities, stand with each other, and resist noises and disruptions. I'm confident that China and the UK will emerge from this test with a more mature and robust relationship, broader and deeper cooperation, and stronger and enduring friendship between our peoples. As the Chinese saying goes, victory is ensured when people pull their strength. Success is secured when people put their heads together. China stands ready to join hands with the international community, including the UK, shore up confidence and address the current difficulties. Together, we will win this battle against the virus. Together, we will create a better and brighter future for the world. Thank you. Thank you, Lord Green and Michael.
Ambassador Liu, thank you very much for those wide-ranging thoughts. I think there will be many people who share that appeal for constructive international cooperation and engagement. We face an extraordinary situation. This is an unprecedented. Unprecedented is a word that's becoming extremely used extremely frequently, but this is unprecedented, at least since the Second World War. It poses all sorts of challenges, both for individual countries. China was first into this, seems to be first out of it, although I guess caution is always necessary. Britain, as you know, is still struggling, and Europe more broadly is still struggling with this. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, of course.
And, and it seems to me that there are some short, medium and longer term challenges, some of which are deeply impacted by COVID-19, but some are not. And it seems to me that clearly in the short term, we have the question of how countries exit from lockdown strategies. This, as you know, is a topic that gets a lot of conversation in this country and around Europe more generally, and is causing a lot of angst in the US as well, and indeed in some parts of East Asia. The Japanese have taken a particular route which is almost explicitly allowing for the possibility of a second wave of the virus. So different strategies, and yet all agonizing with the difficulty of getting out of the COVID-19 situation, particularly since we all recognize, I think, that it'll take some while for an effective inoculation to be available against the virus. So there are some short-term challenges that have to do with the immediate economic impact of COVID-19, which we will all wrestle with and have many shared experiences, I think. Questions, for example, about how quickly travel and tourism will re-emerge as an important economic force. Questions about the retail industry and to what extent many small businesses will be able to cope with the prolonged period of the shutdown, and so on. Then there's the whole macroeconomic question. Country after country have unleashed enormous support packages, both fiscal and monetary. What are the medium-term consequences of those? Does this mean that we face a little further down the track a period of renewed austerity as nations try to repair the balance of their finances? Does it mean higher taxes? Does it mean higher inflation? These are all sorts of questions that will be around. They'll be around for the Chinese authorities, I think, as the Chinese economy rebounds. They're clearly going to be around in the British context and in a broader European context. And the US will face it perhaps in a different way because of its special position vis-a-vis the dollar. And that's the sort of medium-term challenge that's created by COVID-19. I think there are some medium and longer-term challenges that are not affected by COVID-19. I think that the trade order is one question. Even before the virus, we were all struggling with the fact that the WTO was losing its ability to effectively arbitrate disputes because of the absence of a quorum of appellate judges. I note that on the 30th of March, no less, right in the thick of the pandemic, the EU and China and a number of other nations agreed the multi-party interim appeal arrangement, arbitration arrangement. It's a phrase that doesn't run easily off the tongue. MPIA for short, it's easier to describe it as that. There's a question in my mind about how the UK will get itself involved in that, but I think we should all recognize that this is an important step to shoring up the work of the WTO. You talked for reasons we all recognize about the WHO. I think the WHO is one important international organization. I believe the WTO is an equally important international institution that's part of a functioning multilateral order. And we all have some concerns about that. Let's face it, in both cases, America has chosen to take a shall we say, less constructive view, at least temporarily. And I think it's a common interest to re-establish a conviction about the importance of that international multilateral order. And then finally, and then I'm going to stop, I think there's the longer term question, which is in no way gone away. And that is about biodiversity, environmental degradation, climate change. In the short term, we have seen how the decline in economic activity has improved levels of pollution in cities around the world, has led to a reduction in carbon dioxide emissions. But in no way is that anything other than temporary. I believe that the continuing demographic pressure, the continuing pressure of urbanization, the continuing pressure of economic development means that we are going to continue to have to grapple with this fundamental longer-term challenge, and that COVID-19 in no way affects that. It's made it more difficult in the short term, of course, by forcing China to postpone the Kunming Biodiversity Conference and forcing the UK to postpone the Glasgow COP that was due in November. And I hope that those are only postponements and only for a relatively short period of time, because this, of all of the common agendas you, Ambassador, have quite rightly referred to, this one is perhaps the most important of all. It's the most profound and the longest term. And we should not allow COVID-19 and the tragedies and difficulties of the present circumstances to take our eye off that ball. So there's a lot going on. We live in extraordinary times. There are plenty of challenges posed by COVID-19. There are also challenges that affect international relationships. Inevitably, the big question of China and America, which we Europeans look at with a hope and a prayer that these relationships develop on a constructive basis. And I think that there's therefore plenty of need for us to continue to have the sort of dialogue that this occasion represents. And I, for one, as chair of Asia House, believe that we have an extremely important role to play in providing this platform for this dialogue, both about shorter term issues of microeconomics, macroeconomics, and about the medium term issues of the trade order, and about the longer term issues of climate change cooperation and its impact on economic development. Let me stop there. And I wonder if any of what I've just said resonates with you, Ambassador.
Yes, Lord Green, you touch upon many areas. I would say I quite agree with you on many of these areas, your points. You talk about the strategies of each country. I think each country is different. UK is different from Germany, Italy, or France. We follow the situation very closely. But despite the differences, I think there's a commonality between countries in fighting against this virus. I said in my presentation about China-UK's collaboration. I think that's also applied to China's collaboration with other countries. I think when we're faced with this common threat, countries should work together. First, I think we should support each other, both in terms of medical supplies. When China was at a critical moment, UK government sent 2 shipments of medical supplies, most needed. But now you are fighting your battle. We reciprocate your support. Just as Minister Gove said, you receive more, much more than what you donate to China. And we currently I think the ventilators is badly needed. 750 already been shipped to UK, more to come. And also the other medical supplies and equipment, we are ready to supply to the UK and to the world. And, the other area is the sharing experience. You know, China is one of the first countries. I can't say walk out of the wood yet, but we have achieved important progress, and we like to share with other countries our experience, how to contain the virus and how to treat the patients. I'm very pleased that we are keeping constant communications between two sides. Secretary Matt Hancock just had a telephone conversation with his counterpart, Ma Xiaoming, the Minister of Chinese Health Minister, yesterday. They have a very productive, in-depth discussions with regard to collaboration between China and UK in fighting against the virus, and share the experience and compare notes. The third area is international cooperation. I touched upon in my presentations, in my speech. I'm very pleased that despite some, you used the word very politely, it's a very British gentleman expression about unconstructive approach by the other United States. We are very disappointed by US decision, but we believe WHO play a very important role, especially at this critical moment. We need to support WHO in leading the international response against this virus. I'm very pleased that the UK government decided to continue to support WHO. So China and UK share this. And as I said, in addition to $20 million donation, and today, right today, just a few hours before our event, Chinese government announced, maybe they know the Asia House is going to have an event. So I can share with you the first hand that we're going to donate another $30 million support to the WHO, especially we hope it will be used for the developing countries in Africa, in some other places. The fourth, I think, the area where China, UK can cooperate, and also the international community to enhance the collaboration, is what you said, microeconomic policy. We have to ensure that the world economy will resume its growth. And in China, as I said, the major industries have already resumed the production, 99%. But of course, and the government introduced more policies, measures to support small and medium-sized businesses. That's also very important. And we also support the WTO. That's also very important to ensure the trade liberalization and facilitation is still our goal. We would also like to work with the UK. Climate change, that is very important on our agenda as well. It's a pity that we have to postpone both conferences, the COP15 and COP26. At the very beginning of this year, I regarded as a year of collaboration between China, UK in climate change. That is, as a matter of fact, our two countries worked very closely, coordinate each other, despite the virus. Though we have to postpone the conferences, but the working is still going on. And I keep very close communication with the Secretary Sharma. He is designated as the president for the COP26, and we got a new Minister of Environment, and I tried to get the two connected. The working team of our two countries are talking to each other online, and I think this is we should not ignore the other important agenda while fighting the COVID-19. The other important issue is that when we are enhancing, international collaboration, we also should, we're fighting against this virus. We also should be guarded against the political barriers, as I said in my speech, that some politicians and some forces try to use this to scapegoat and play a game of blaming in order to shift their responsibility. We call for the governments of countries to focus on fighting the virus, on protecting the lives of the people, rather than fighting each other, rather than undermining the international collaboration. That is also very important. So we are very disappointed and rejecting this so-called accusation by some of American politicians. We don't think this disinformation against China serves the purpose of international response to this virus. On China-US relations, we have every reason to have a sound and good relationship. President Xi had several telephone conversations with President Trump. We always believe that China-US will gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation. And we also believe it is not in the interest of China and US to have a sound, good relations, but it's also interest in the world. We like to have a good relationship with the US based on mutual respect, based on non-confrontation, based on mutually collaboration. And we are working towards this goal. But you need the two to tango, right? While the Chinese leaders, while Chinese ambassadors, Chinese diplomats spreading, the words of community of shared future for mankind, while try very hard to shore up the confidence of the international community. But some politicians, some people try to spread the disinformation, spread the rumor in the world. That is not helpful at all. So we really hope that China, US could work together, and the international community should work together for the common goal that serves the interests of all mankind.
Ambassador, thank you for that's a rather broad-ranging response to my thoughts, and I detect a lot of areas of common interest, well, certainly common interest, but also common perspective on the right way forward. Michael, I'm going to invite you to moderate some questions. I know that our audience wants to put some questions. We don't have too much time, but Michael, you kindly offered to moderate that for us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both of you. Now, lots of questions, as you might imagine. I'm going to start with members of the Asia House Corporate Network first, and then broaden it out. I'm going to invite Adam Keswick from Jardines to ask the first question. And after Adam, I'll go to Emma Roberts of BHP. But Adam, if I can go to you now. Adam.
Michael, can you hear me?
We
Ambassador.
Yes,
thank you for your words, and Stephen, yours too. I thought it was broadly very encouraging to hear everything you said, and likewise, I hope that the networks of communications that have been put in place to fight this virus can be continued to promote the economies after we've tackled this, which I'm sure we will. Ambassador, you gave the general views of what China will be doing, all of which I took a lot of comfort from. But more specifically, I feel that the eyes of the world will be listening to the upcoming NPC meeting whenever that takes place, but presuming it will be sometime later in May. it would be very interesting to get your views on what specific messages do you think are going to come out of that meeting that the rest of the world can take further comfort from in terms of battling the virus and also a return to some form of economic normality? It would just be interesting to have your views on that.
I can't see you very clearly. What meeting you're talking about?
Well, will the National Party Congress meet at some point in China, and would you hope that there would be specific messages coming out of that?
I think this too will be a very important, what we call it, the 2 sessions. It has been postponed. It will cite policies and the guidance, not only for the development of China for this year. I think it will draft the plan for what we call it the 14th 5-year plan. So it will, the significance of this session, 2 sessions, will go beyond this year. Of course, the COVID-19 will be very top on the agenda. And I wouldn't speculate what others will be on the agenda. But as I said in my speech, that COVID-19 and not only pose challenges to China, but also create opportunities for the development. I think the delegates of both the National People's Congress, deputies, and also of the Political Consultative Conference, they will, focus on what are the new areas, what are the new growth, points of new growth of the future development. So I would recommend you to follow these 2 sessions very closely. Thank you.
I shall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Adam. We'll now go to Emma Roberts from BHP, and after Emma, Laura Mann from AstraZeneca. So Emma, your question, please.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Mr. Ambassador and Lord Green and Asian House for holding this very useful and interesting discussion. Ambassador, it's very good to hear your summary of China's economy as it's moving out of the crisis, and BHP obviously has a very strong relationship with its Chinese customers and for its commodities. And so far, we've seen this demand sort of remain rather stable even during the sort of peak of the crisis within China. And BHP has been able to work with its customers to continue that supply. However, I think there is certainly some concern, and there's been some recent press about whether that demand from China may ease off towards the latter part of the year as China experiences perhaps a drop in exports from Western economies as Western economies try and come out of their own sort of lockdown measures. We're behind China. And as Western economies sort of struggle to get their economies up and running. What's your sort of thoughts on China's continued emergence from its crisis and the continued sort of restart of China's economy? Do you see a dip in that as the Western economies struggle to get back up, or do you see that remaining rather steady and strong?
Yeah, as I said, China, I think, will continue to play a role as a powerhouse of the world economy. As China gradually resume its production, and as I said, 99% of the major industries has resumed. China will, continue to play a role as a factory of the world. China is a huge market itself. Will contribute to the resumption of global growth. As I mentioned, this COVID-19 really brings some opportunities though it's also an opportunity for us to restructure our economy. There's some areas which might have a great potential, as I said, like stay-home economy, digital economy, AI and IA and others, and also medical area as well. Give you one example that starting from March 1st and April 10th, China exported about 7.12 billion masks and 55.57 million protective gowns and 20,000 ventilators and 13 million goggles. So, China is really a source of the medical supplies. That is also China's contribution, not only to the global response to the virus, but also it will help the future, the building of the industrial and supply chain. And so China is committed to building an open world economy. China have achieved its success in the past 40 years because of the policy of reform opening up. I think China will depend on this policy to continue its success. There's no reason for China to close the door. There's no reason for China to discontinue the reform. So reform will be going on, and China will be open wider to the world. And I think I mentioned about this 127 import-export fair, which will be online in June, and also the third China Import Expo in November. That will be very valuable opportunities for China to engage with the outside world. And I really hope that we have already sent invitation to British businesses. Where I'm talking to the senior officials of Department of International Trade, talking to the business leaders. We invite them to participate these two events. And I think it will provide enormous opportunities for our two countries to work together to resume our production, to resume the momentum of economic growth.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I'd now like to invite Laura Mann from AstraZeneca, and after Laura, we'll go to David Say of KPMG. So, Laura. Laura, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Excellent. Ambassador, thank you so much for your excellent remarks. AstraZeneca places very high value on the strength of our partnership with China before, during, and post-COVID. For example, with partnering with China, we've been able to donate 9 million masks around the world for the countries most in need, in partnership with the World Health Organization and World Economic Forum. I wondered, in terms of looking ahead, what do you see as the further opportunities to continue to strengthen the bilateral relationship between China and the UK, for example, in healthcare and with life sciences?
As I said early on, our two countries not only talking to each other on the very high level, President Xi and have two telephone conversations with Prime Minister Johnson in just a matter of 1 month. That was very rare. I've been here as ambassador for more than 10 years, and I've seen our top leaders have such intensive communications in such a short period of time. And not even on the on the ministerial level, we are having a very intensive communications. The State Councillor Foreign Minister talking to Secretary Rob, Foreign Minister Wang, and Director Yang Yichi talking to Mark Sedwell. And I here in London kept a very close contact with the ministers, with the secretaries. We compare notes, we share experiences. And also China, UK are working very closely on, vaccine. The scientists of our two countries working very closely. Imperial College, Oxford, Cambridge, working very closely with our counterparts, and we are making with our counterparts in China. While China's medical team was here, they have online discussions with the British experts, doctors. So we have a very intensive interactions with each other. In addition to supplying, medical equipment and supplies, vaccine is really the final decision, is the final solution to the battle, and a huge contribution to the battle against the virus. And both President Xi and Prime Minister Johnson expressed their support for the scientists of the two countries to work together on this very important area. And also on the international arena, I think China and UK work very closely. We're both supporters of multilateralism. We both supporter of WHO, WTO. Lord Green, he cares very much. We see UK are partners for China, and also on Belt and Road even. I think we are now working with the countries along the road to build Silk Road for public health. I think that is another area that China, UK can share experience, can work together. On climate change, as I said, China and UK are leaders, I would say, in the environmental protection. We're supposed to host COP15 and COP26. But we're still working it. It has been postponed. It's not cancelled. When all this is over, I think we'll have the two countries will host these two conferences. It will set the agenda. It will set direction for climate change, for environmental protection. So there's enormous opportunities between our two countries, and also a trade between. I think there's still great future for the trade between our two countries. Last year, the trading set a new record high, increased 7%, despite the downturn of a global growth of the trade. UK now is the third trading partner. China is the third export market for UK, and Chinese investment is also coming. In the past 5 years, the total Chinese investment is bigger than the previous 30 years combined. Now, UK is the #1 destination for Chinese investment. And Chinese businesses here are very active. A few days ago, I participated online, the donation event by China Chamber of Commerce, and they donate ventilators, face masks, goggles, protective gowns to NHS. That shows their global vision and the sense of social responsibility. We encourage all these interactions between China and UK.
Thanks very much, Ambassador. Now I'm going to ask David Say to ask a question. There's a lot of interest from the media. So after David, I want to take a question from James Landale, the BBC, followed by Yolo David from CGTN. Thanks, Ambassador. If your people have said we've got a few more minutes, so if you don't mind, we'll have those three questions and then wrap up. So David.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Ambassador. It's a joy to see you on this remarkable technology, and it's to that I want to address the question. You've said to me in the past that every challenge has an opportunity, And I do think that this remarkable technology allows us to have a much more direct and immediate dialogue with Chinese firms. I've certainly found, talking to clients in the UK, that I can bring my Chinese partners into a virtual meeting far more readily and far more acceptably than it's been in the past. And I think that's one of the changes the world is seeing, that virtual dialogue is becoming, we've proved it's workable, it's becoming utterly acceptable. And in the past, having a dialogue with Chinese firms and Chinese banks has always involved 20 hours on planes and the rest. I think one of the things coming out of this is the potential to accelerate dialogue between the UK and China across so many dimensions. And I just wondered if there are ways in which we can accelerate the facilitation of that and whether the embassy can play a role.
Yes, I'm very pleased that you are one of the beneficiaries of this new technology. Once you have Huawei participating in your 5G development, the speed and quality of these online meetings will be even better. I know that Prime Minister Johnson have a very ambitious plan to have a full coverage of the UK by 2025 by 5G. I think Huawei will be a big help on this. We encourage these online meetings, discussions. We do hope that not only the leaders of our two countries talking to each other, but also business leaders. I have several online meetings. As a matter of fact, this is Asia House is really advanced to have these online seminars. And very soon I will have another one with CBI and then another one with the CBBC, China British Business Council. I already had one, British Chamber of Commerce in China. We have these real-time discussions. I think we benefit greatly from this technology. So I think it's very important. We should keep committed to free trade, to building a business-friendly environment. So UK is well known and has a prestige in keep free and open economy. That's very important. That's why UK can become a #1 destination of Chinese investment. I have a meeting with many Chinese business leaders. I said, why you are here? Comparing with other European countries, why you put your money here? Why you come here for investment? And like Jingye, I just participated in the acquisition of Jingye of British Steel. They told me they found the UK is very open, transparent, and both political leaders and business leaders, local leaders, local communities welcome foreign businesses. So they welcome Chinese business with open arms. That's the success. That's the secret of success of UK. So I do hope that this trend will be continued. It is really not only for the benefit of China-UK collaboration, it is also for the benefit of UK people.
Thank you, Ambassador. Two final questions, James Landale from the BBC first.
Hello, good afternoon, Ambassador. Ambassador, you place great store by international cooperation. Will China, as a result, cooperate with any independent international investigation into the origins of this pandemic? Will China provide any investigators with full access to all the relevant data, locations, and witnesses?
China has been open, transparent from the very beginning. We have invited the experts of WHO to come to China, and they visit not only Wuhan, but also other places, other cities. And they came out came up with a very extensive, comprehensive report about their study in China. You know, I hear quite a lot of this speculation, disinformation about China is covering up and China is hiding something. This is not true. I do not know if you have read the report of WHO. You know, some people already have a prejudgment. Each time they hear the American politicians accusing China, criticizing China for hiding, for covering up, you know, they just turn to them. But one Chinese spokesman spoke about the facts. I read very little coverage here in Western media. So this already had a prejudgment, the bias against China. That's the problem. I think that I would advise the media, including British media, to be balanced, to be objective. I'm not calling you to be friendly to China, just to be balanced. You know, while you are reporting, just like what US Secretary of State criticizing, so-called, you know, stigmatizing China, you should also report what the counter-argument of China. You should also report the WHO, what their comment on it. So that's the problem. You know, when the media have this bias, they only report something they like to hear. They don't report what the other side of the story. So I've told you, and the Chinese government have been transparent, open, very quick. You know, one American complained that China have not shared information, has not reported to WHO, to international organizations 1 month after the outbreak. That's not true. You know, the first one that is first reported on 27th of December by Zhang Jixian. He reported much earlier than Li Wenliang. The people only focus on Li Wenliang. Li is a hero. We recognize him. He made, you know, he sacrificed for fighting this virus. But he spread, you know, he did not report to the authorities. You know, he shared this story 3 days after Zhang Jixian, Dr. Zhang, reported to the local health authorities. Then the government adopted very strict, swift actions and notified 4 days later, notified the WHO and share information 7 days later with Americans. So that's how Americans can take that actions to take his nationals back and to close the border. You know, if you check the timeline of what China is doing, we have been transparent. We've been, you know, straightforward with all the data. You're talking about independent investigation. It's up to the WHO. You know, that's why we support the WHO. We believe we have to play by the international norms, international rules, not by, you know, some other countries' rules. Like some other countries, even their local courts sued China. It's absurd. You know, I've been posted twice in Washington. This is not the first time that, you know, some politicians, some people want to play world police. This is not the era, you know, of gunboat diplomacy. This is not the era when China was still a semi-colonial, you know, semi-feudal society. This is the 21st century. This is the third decade of the 21st century. I think those people, I cannot understand them. You know, these people still live in the old days. They think they can bully China. They can bully the world. If WHO do not act in their way, they stop supply, they stop support, they criticize WHO to be China-centric. That's not right. That's not right, you know. So we are calling for international cooperation. That's the only weapon That's the only way out to win this battle against the virus. Not by scapegoating, not by playing games, not by politicizing the virus, not by spreading political virus. So we have to be guarded against this while fighting the real invincible enemy, to quote President Trump. I think China is not an enemy of the United States. If they regard China as an enemy, I think they choose the wrong target. China is a friend of the United States. China is a partner for the United States in fighting against the virus.
Okay.
China has donated 1.8 billion face masks. That means 6 face masks per person in the United States, despite these politicians spreading disinformation against in China. But we also try to help and lending our help hand to American people when they need us.
Ambassador, thank you. One final question, if you don't mind, from Yellow David, who's from CGTN.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Listening to your presentation on the need for cooperation, you mentioned some of China's priorities after this pandemic. Where specifically do you think, as well as Britain, where else does China want to prioritize?
First we need to resume production. We strike a balance between the fighting against the virus and ensure, a gradual resumption of production. So the social life, normal social order, a normal life will return to normal, on the normal track. That is the top priorities. But of course, we also have to be guard against the recurrence of the virus, because the risk now is more about imported cases. The government adopt some measures to take care of the imported cases. We need to collaboration also from other countries to achieve our goal. And also we, we have to be careful to ensure that the success, hard-won progress will not be set back, by sudden lifting of the restrictions. So it's a gradual lifting restrictions, like Wuhan. The outbound traffic has been, the ban on outbound traffic has been lifted, but there's still some restrictions on some part, on some sectors. Schools have not yet fully resumed, and but in some other places, schools, there are certain requirements. If you meet the requirements, you can gradually resume the schools. So resume production, resume the normal life of the people. And also we engage very actively with the international rest of the world on the diplomatic engagement. With, just like what I said, we have important agendas in front of us, like climate change. I'm working now with the Secretary Sharma and other senior officials that how we can engage each other to pick up the momentum, to pick up the work we left before the outbreak. And also we work very hard with the Department of International Trade with regard to the free trade agreement between China and UK after Brexit. I'm talking to the ministers and the Secretary of State, also talking to her counterpart in China. So we have a very busy agenda ahead of us, and most of them are online now. And so we want to make sure once this is all over, we can pick up the momentum. If we do not have these online preparations, we would, lose the momentum. And so that is what we are focusing on. Thank you.
Ambassador, we're way over time, and I'm very grateful to you, Ambassador, for taking so much time. Lord Green, I'll ask him to formally thank you on behalf of all of us at Asia House and all those who have participated.
Thank you, Michael. Ambassador Liu, that's been a remarkable discussion, which I've enjoyed enormously, and your final remarks are extremely good ones to end on. That powerful reminder that there is a huge range of issues on which we have every opportunity to cooperate effectively, and that we need to keep the momentum up and remember that there will be a time after COVID-19. Lots of lessons to be learned about it, of course, lots of shorter term issues about repairing macroeconomic damage, but these fundamental longer term issues on which we have so much in common and where we have so many opportunities to work together. So I really appreciate, on behalf of Asia House, you're taking the time to be with us, and I look forward to many future engagements. You mentioned that you were in your 11th year as ambassador here. That means that you know this country extremely well, and I have always enjoyed your comments on this country because you have great insights into it and into the dynamics of the relationship. There are lots of tremendous opportunities for us in the midst of this crisis even, and we need to never lose sight of that. So thank you for joining. And thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to our corporate members and all of our guests for joining us on what I think has been an extremely valuable session. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you all. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you all for those taking part. Have a good day. Stay safe and stay well. Take care.
Thank you.